Escalation continues. Russia versus Ukraine. We saw that there was a gigantic explosion on the Crimean Bridge. Looked like this. There was a CCTV camera that caught that truck driving by. There was another truck, looks like, or another vehicle right next to it before the bomb went off. And so presumably several casualties in that explosion. We still don't know all of the details, but we're going to dive into that and analyze exactly what this means, what the consequences are, because there's a lot to unpack here. Of course, the Russians say this is our territory. This is a terrorist attack. Putin is now responding to that. But before we can really understand the consequences, let us learn a little bit more about this region in general. If you're like me, maybe in the United States, and sometimes you can benefit from a little geographic refresher. So this is what it looks like there. You can see, according to this image that came out from RFERL Graphics, they've got different colors on the countries. You can see Russia on the right is in white, and you see Crimea and Ukraine are in the sort of beige color to the left. And right here in the middle region, you see this Kerch Strait right across the Sea of Azov, the Russian Crimean Bridge. Very important bridge. As we take a look at it, Wikipedia has some background for us. They tell us the Crimean Bridge, also called the Kerch Strait Bridge, is one of a parallel pair of bridges, 4-lane road that takes supplies from Russia into Crimea. The bridge was built back in 2014, start of that, and it cost $227 billion. You can see this is a little bit more what it looks like. Big stretch of bridge there. It looks like there may be some land sort of there in the middle that they're using to cross over. January 2015, multi-billion-dollar construction. It was in operation up until October 8th. Local time, a large explosion went off at 6:07 a.m. So early morning hours there. It led to a large fire and it caused part of the bridge to collapse. So we'll take a look at this. And as you can see, part of this is Russia said that besides transportation, Russia intended the bridge to support its claims to Crimea. So Russia says, we're building a bridge over there. It's $4 billion US. It's the longest bridge ever constructed. It's the longest bridge in Europe. It's connecting our people to this land. Therefore, it is ours, right? That's the claim to the bridge. That's where it all came from. Now, when we zoom in on this, Google Maps shows us exactly how important this location is. You can see that when we zoom out on this region, we see the big peninsula of Crimea here. We see Russia to our right. And as we zoom out, there's the big Black Sea there right in the middle. So this little strait here and this bridge is really the only connection between this landmass, Crimea, and Russia on the right. And they just put a big hole right there in the center of that thing. And it is a big problem if that bridge ultimately fails. Currently, it's still functional, as we'll see, but it is a critical piece of infrastructure that connects those two regions. Now we'll take a look at exactly what happened. This is the explosion that took place on the Crimean Bridge. You see this CCTV camera is going to illustrate this truck slowly making its way across the bridge. This is about 6:07 a.m. There's a vehicle to the left of the truck that probably is not going to make it. And as they are traveling along, you'll also notice to the left, there is a rail car line that is built on the scaffolding. It's on a bridge that parallels the roadway. And there apparently was a big train, a bunch of train cars filled with gasoline or fuel or some sort of explosives that actually exploded after the original bomb went off. So this truck explodes and actually carries over into the fuel train and blows up the fuel train too. It's like if you're in a video game, you couldn't time this better. You know, you're going to use one explosion to set off another explosion, and that explosion is going to do other damage. It's the old twofer. Let's watch. Truck on the right, presumed to be carrying the explosives. The rail train on the left. There's the explosion. That takes out that section of the bridge. All the vehicles come to a stop immediately. And that is the damage. Let's watch that one more time. Now, a couple questions on this. Who is driving the car, right? Is the car just on autopilot? Is there a delivery man in there? You just run this across over there to Crimea. Let's see, you'll be back in an hour. You also have this individual, presumably no longer with us either, given the intensity of that explosion. So damage all across the bridge, very important resource. When we zoom in, we can see some additional damage. From the sky, this is what the scene looked like on the Crimean Bridge. You can see that two sections of that bridge had been sort of blown out. They've fallen down, and we'll take a look at why that happened. But to the left of the major roadway, you can also see the train that had a bunch of the fuel cars that also caught fire and apparently exploded, doing some damage to that line. So you've got now two major issues. You've got basically a rail line that may or may not be operable, and your capacity, your throughput on the one roadway is also diminished pretty greatly. And if I turn myself off here, you can see that it's also disconnected down here at the bottom left of the document. So sort of several different areas on the bridge where it has completely collapsed, and we'll take a look at why that is in a minute. But pretty serious damage, right? They're not going to just pour some concrete and fix that thing up in a couple days. Pretty serious stuff. When we zoom back out, we'll see several different angles. From the sea, this is what the scene on the bridge looked like. You can see smoke from the fuel line, the rails, cars still burning, and boats assessing the damage. You see the bridge has fallen into the ocean, into the sea in multiple locations there. And each one of those cars apparently has some fuel in it, which of course is very convenient to explode. If you're going to try to bomb a bridge, it's nice to hit two. That fuel will just continue to burn itself out of the side of one of those tankers. And it looks like there may be a fire truck there trying to put some of this out. And so, many people saying that this was, this is a civilian rail and this is civilian throughputs. Other people saying this is just, sort of pseudo-military lines into Crimea, and they're damaging the ability to move military operations in and out of the region. This is the scene from the blown rail cars that were on the bridge. You can see the metal is mangled all over the place. And so those rails are not going to be just ironed out. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, you can see how close they were on the bridge this way. That's where the bombs went off, right? The explosion actually was the truck explosion that went off on this roadway, but the bomb was so big that it caught the rail, which is totally disconnected from the other side of the bridge, also on fire. So pretty powerful explosion there, and a seriously good shot. If you're going to time that, like if you're sitting there on the side of the bridge and you're going to time this thing, you nailed it. Like, nice job on that. You got it right next to the rail car. And I don't know if they knew that there were explosives or gasoline or fuel in there in those rail cars, but still pretty amazing. The Russians opened up the bridge pretty quickly, surprisingly quickly. You can see this individual was driving across on one of the roads that was still open. And as he is crossing the bridge, he actually turns his camera and we see the rail cars burnt to a crisp on his left. Just listening to a little rap music, I think. Hopefully we don't get a copyright strike. Now he's coming up. You can see the rail cars on his upper left. And on his right, that's the downed bridge. So they put up some barricades. And then he's going to show you those burnt rail cars. Right, so look at the explosion on that. The bomb went off from right about where he is sitting, right? The bomb went off from right here. That's where the truck was, presumably. And it's so big, it's so gigantic that it leaps all the way across that second bridge and catches that entire rail car line on fire. Pretty amazing. Yeah, pretty amazing. So that is what it looked like. And he's making some comment, don't know what that was, but he's saying, my goodness, is what it sounded like. That is horrific. So that's the explosion. A lot of people are asking why the bridge collapsed in multiple locations. And you can see this graphic came out from this guy at Andrew_Barr. And he put this together pretty brilliantly. He details how a bridge works, as you can see. He says we've got a, let's open this here. Let's open this in a new tab so we can zoom in on this here. This is the explanation for why the Crimean Bridge fell in multiple locations. You've probably seen the satellite footage, and it looks like it was bombed in several places, but it wasn't. Here you can see this person, his name is Andrew Barr, drafted this graphic. You can see the bridge deck looks like it was connected under these piles of pillars. There are these different expansion joints, and once the explosion severed one of the spans, it created some gravity which pulled the bridge in from the expansion joints, and the deck is pulled off of the pillars, and then you see multiple sags into the sea, right? So that's why it looks like there were probably multiple bombs, is what he's saying, when in reality, the one bomb in one location will breach the tension on the bridge, and then it will cause the entire bridge to collapse. And that's why it looks like it looks. It wasn't actually multiple bombs. It was just one bridge, one bomb from Andrew_Barr. If you want to go follow him, of course, for more details on that, I'd encourage you to do that. So that's what happened on the bridge.